In my lifetime, I've been told that Alfa Romeo makes amazing cars, beautiful cars that'll beguile and enchant. I've also been told that they depreciate like stones and barely work. As such, I've only ever sort of wanted three: a Brera, a 147 GTA, and a pretty but flawed 8C. For a firm that's supposedly at the pinnacle of brilliance, that's a pretty poor show. However, in 2011, Alfa revealed a concept for a sports car. They called it the 4C. All of a sudden, Alfa Romeo started making sense. In 2011, when the Alfa 4C concept first appeared, the world was presented with a small, beautiful sports car like the ones the company used to make in the 60s. So when the real McCoy appeared a couple of years later, I wondered whether the Alfa I'd been expected to love all these years was back. The 4C is, dodgy headlamps aside, stunning. You can't say it's not at all. But cries that it's a miniature Ferrari or a Lotus knockoff are unfounded. There's no way it couldn't be an Alfa Romeo. Its curves are in the right place, the right details are there, and it's just pretty, even if the interior is a little sparse. More importantly though, it's an Alfa that you want on your drive, to see on the road. That's just the looks. The engineering is quite wondrous. You see, it's quite difficult to make a new car nowadays, let alone a sports car, because they have to be oh so safe and oh so strong, and there's various legislations to meet up with. And those tend to mean that cars get pretty heavy pretty quickly, but Alfa Romeo has managed to make a sports car that weighs just 895 kilos, which is nothing. Admittedly, in America and Australia, well, they're a little heavier because their governments like the concept of safety, but still. It's mad, but how has Alfa Romeo done it? Well, lightweight materials. The passenger cell, the bit you sit in, is made entirely of carbon fibre. You can see it on the floor and in the cockpit and all around it. Really, that weighs just 65 kilos. And the body's made from lightweight composites that are apparently 20% lighter than steel. And it seems to be doing just as good a job. If you're going to commit to this lightweight thing, you need to do it properly. As such, the engine, a 1.7 litre turbocharged 4-pot, is all new and all aluminium. It's light then. It does push the car's weight distribution backwards a touch. There's a 38/62 rear bias, but in a short, wide, mid-engine rear-wheel drive sports car, that can't possibly be a problem. The new engine is pretty clean as well. It emits just 157 grams per kilometre of carbon dioxide, and if you drive like a saint, you'll see 41.5 mpg. Allegedly. I haven't seen that myself, but still, they say it, so it must be possible somewhere. And that is, well, it's very impressive considering the power this produces. 237 brake horsepower and 258 pound-foot. That means it's good to do the 0 to 62 run in 4.5 seconds, and its top speed is 160 miles an hour. There's only one transmission available in here as well. It's a 6-speed dual clutch jobby with a paddle shift. No stick shift available here, I'm afraid. So the engineering's very impressive, and if you're a nerd or like boasting at your mates in the pub, that's all well and good. However, I want to feel as though I've finally been given an Alfa that lives up to all the hype. The many people telling me that if I don't own an Alfa, I've not done cars properly, that an Alfa Romeo is a special kind of car. I want to know what I've been missing out on. The last Alfa I drove was a Mito, the small hatchbacky thing. I drove the small diesel and the slightly bigger engine, quicker petrol, and they couldn't have been more different, very chalk and cheese. However, they couldn't have also been more different from a car I actually enjoyed driving. They didn't conjure up images of gaily driving through the Italian countryside and driving pleasure and years of engineering pedigree. They reminded me of commuting and how much I don't like doing it at all. So if the current new crop of Alfa Romeos aren't all that, well, where did Alfa get its rep from? It's an Italian marque for one, so when it comes to design, historically Alfa's cranked out some good stuff. Also, being Italian, its praise lies in motorsport. Not the super safe stuff we have now, but the scary, dangerous designed to go but not to stop stuff. Alfa's first trip to motorsport was in 1911 in the Targa Florio. After World War I, though, things stepped up a notch. After the end of the First World War, Alfa started kicking all kinds of ass in competition. 1920, it saw a win at Mugello, and a chap called Enzo Ferrari drove a very shiny Alfa Romeo to a second place at the Targa Florio. It didn't stop there, it kick-started something amazing. For example, they took a win at the first ever Grand Prix in 1925. Alfa's victories include 11 Mille Miglias, 10 Targa Florios, 4 Le Mans, 10 EU Formula 3 championships, 2 BTCC championships, 1 DTN champ, 17 European Touring Car championships, and many, many more. And some truly beautifully designed road cars, and yeah, I can see why people love them so much. Alfa at one point or another made something that everyone could love, be it a beautiful road car or a stunning racer. The 4C has quite a bit of pedigree to live up to. The question is, does it? Well, let's start with the good. It is beautiful. It is stunningly beautiful, and I can't stop looking at it. I absolutely adore the way it looks. As an ornament, I would love to have it in my house. Beautiful thing. I like the heavy use of carbon fibre because it adds a bit of engineering flair to the whole thing. When everything's flowing right, it's a really good car. When you hook up the corners, when you're not going too quickly, it's a really wonderful, wonderful thing. And by not going too quickly, I mean comfortably not very fast. Because it has an interesting little trait in that once you start accelerating and trying to go in a straight line, the front wheels then dictate where you want to go. And that gets a bit unnerving. The wheel starts grabbing and shimmying left and right, and in the end you end up hanging on for dear life more than actually feeling as though you're in total control. I know that sounds overly harsh, but it is something that you have to experience. The car that I was hoping this would be smooth and flowing and a proper sports car. This feels less like a super smooth racing car and more like an untamed racer that's slightly jittery. The ride itself is a little bit harsh, even though this is the comfier version of the car. There's a racing package and there's a comfort package, and this is the more comfortable of the two. And it just isn't. It's jarring. It's not that comfortable or that lovely. The brakes, while initially are pretty, well, harsh, quite grabby, once you get used to them, you have to be super, super careful with them. They are on a tiny, tiny tolerance, but once you get used to them, well, they're pretty damn good. The lack of a manual gearbox might irk some, but this dual clutch works pretty well. The cabin is actually remarkably spacious. The car is very, very wide for a small sports car, but it does mean there's quite a bit of room, so you can sit in here with a mate and have your own personal space, and you don't get that in a Lotus at all. So that's one point in the Alfa's favour. The 4C strikes me as a halfway house between the rough-edged approach that Lotus takes and the surgically sharpened methods you get attached to a Porsche badge, but it lacks the bits that gives either their kudos. It has its plus points, the looks, the whooshing engine, the steering when it isn't having an ADHD outbreak, economy and all that. But is this the Alfa that'll get a new generation of people waxing lyrical about the company? Will it update past glories and make Alfa the contender you want it to be? As much as I hate to say it, it's not the one for me. Alfa should be incredibly proud of the car it's made. It's light, it's technologically very clever, it's beautiful, and it's effing quick. And deep within the 4C there is a really good car waiting to happen. When you're going properly, when you're flowing with the car, you can feel the pedigree through the wheel. You get why people bang on about how Alfa was brilliant. But then all of a sudden the steering goes off on its own and, well, you wonder what the hell happened. But having said all of that, when you see one, when you hear one going properly, you won't be able to help but want one. It will entrap you. The magic is there. It's just not been seen properly yet.